My name's Mike Bevan. I'm a digital leader for Amazon Web Services and I cover EMEA in the UK.
My name is Rose Mortada and I have a background in tech and consultancy and I am currently a civil servant. I work for the Ministry of Justice as a service owner, leading a number of teams who are transforming probation services.
So having a bias for action when you're engaging in transformation work makes a massive difference because it's about delivering tangible value to the stakeholders. And the stakeholders can be different people. They can be citizens, they can be senior government officials, they can be staff in a government department. So bias for action, when you see it, is about being really visible and transparent and deliberate with your actions. So when we talk about how we run projects in an agile way, you would have something like a fortnightly showcase where you would actually show the key stakeholders what is being made, how it's looking, what problems we've had to overcome, what problems we've still got, and ideally demonstrate working software to them because that really shows progress is underway.
So when I worked in a previous organisation, I led a project that was aimed at transforming the way that people find and apply for teacher training courses. Agile was a really important part of the approach that we took. And the reason for this was that we were taking on a whole new service, and it sounds simple to make a service for application, but actually there's a lot of complexity. There's an existing service that provided this, so there were expectations that had been built up from that, and just a lot of information and assumptions that were built into the original plans that we had. So rather than spending years building a new service and then releasing it all at once, we decided to break the existing service into chunks. And starting with one, we were able to ship part of the service to users. And the reason that that was brilliant was because it helped us build the confidence with our stakeholders that we could deliver. It also meant that we could test and experiment with users, so we got feedback much more quickly doing it that way. So ideally, when we start working with a new business area or a new user problem, what we're looking for is a problem. However, that's not what happens in most situations that I've experienced. Mostly people, either from operations or policy, they're very aware of these problems, and when they talk to us, they're talking about a solution that they thought of rather than the problem itself, and the solution that they've thought of is what they want to talk about. Now, one option that we could take forward would be to just build the solution that is being proposed to us. The reason that we don't, and we do take it back to a discovery and look at the problem, is because of the risk that's involved in building a solution that isn't validated.
So the agile approach says we think there's a problem, but we'll actually get some data and we'll actually try out what we build with real people, and then we'll get some responses to that. And if it's not quite right, we can move in a slightly different direction.
You should not do discovery for more than 4 or 6 weeks. And after that, you need to move on to the next stage, which is taking one of your candidates for solving the problem and starting to test and prototype that. Managing expectations is where I spend most of my time, because the needs of our internal customer or stakeholder is absolutely crucial to being able to deliver value to users. And we need to gain the confidence of stakeholders and get them on board.
The challenge with using agile techniques in large organisations that have more traditional governance models is that they're not really set up to deal in that way. They kind of like certainty, they like long-term planning, and they're obviously very focused around risk. And risk is managed in a very different way in an agile program. If you have a risk, you actually go and test it. You don't write it down on a register somewhere and put it to one side. So all these techniques just don't look familiar, and they're not what people are used to. And people, human beings, tend to rely on what they knew before and what they know or believe has to have worked in the past.
Often we have challenges in this space because our stakeholders are used to more waterfall ways of working. They're used to things like Gantt charts and long risk logs and other kind of things that you would associate with Prince2 projects, whereas our agile digital teams want to do show and tells, and they usually avoid lots of paperwork.
And the mistakes I've seen made is people overusing jargon, kind of saying, don't worry, it's agile, it'll all be fine, and all these sorts of things that just kind of put the hackles up of senior stakeholders. So you've got to take the time to explain to them, but more importantly, show how it's delivering value to them. So a good example is when we were doing the Exemplar programme in the UK government, we started working with a particular benefit called Carers Allowance. To actually firstly earn trust with them, the team went there for a week and spent time with the people who sat at a desk every day processing carers benefits claims and with their management. And we really got deep with them and understood how the process was working now and what a happy path was. We then agreed with them that we'd go and talk to some actual end users as well. So we want to actually talk to the benefit claimants and find out what their experience was like of actually trying to apply for these claims, as well as the people who had to deal with processing them once they've done that. And that's a really important part of the whole process, because you really get true insights then into what it's like to be someone who's in a position of needing help from the state, but they're finding the process quite hard. And there was some heartbreaking footage of a mother whose child was born with some kind of disability. And she said every time she filled out this form, it took her back to the moment the doctor told her. And you think, is this what we're really doing to people when we do these things? So we moved all the qualifying questions right to the beginning, which meant that people could basically self-select out of the process very early on, only leaving the people who qualify for the benefit, who could then go through the whole process of application. So what's important with these projects is to keep the confidence and trust from the senior stakeholders.
It doesn't need to fix every problem. It just needs to show an intent. And you can use that to get user feedback, iterate it to a place where it is fantastic and a really great experience, and then use that as a mode of communication to gain traction with stakeholders, because they will be able to see it and understand it much better for themselves. I think it is the responsibility of the people who are doing the transformation work, who are doing the new things, to be able to adapt their language to the language of the stakeholders. What words are they using in the business to describe their meetings, their groups, their governance structures? And can you mirror some of that in the way that you're talking about Agile without compromising the purpose and the reason that you're doing those things? So hold on to the purpose, but be willing to change the words that you're using.
So start with a small piece, get the stakeholders on board through that transparent communication and those very honest conversations. And then when you get success, celebrate success and communicate it often, because that builds momentum and trust. Then people start to believe in it. I think you move from a management style where instead of saying, what have you done? Why have you not done it? When are you going to get it done? More to, it's really great what you've been doing. What's stopping you? Do more, and how can I help you go faster? And that is the real kind of subtle change, and that makes the team feel like there's someone behind them and they've got that kind of top cover. But it also shows that the leadership is more interested in getting something delivered and getting something done than looking at why it's not quite where they thought it might have been in the first place. And that sets the tone really well about delivery.